Welcome to the Fantasy 40 Podcast with your host, John Dabari.
I can beat the shit out of Hollywood Brown if you'd like.
Matt Walker.
Like the DK Metcalf of running back.
And Andrew Berg.
I love Hakeem Butler, actually. He's starting to grow on me.
Remember to like, rate, subscribe on Podbean, iTunes, Stitcher, and Spotify. Follow the guys on Twitter at the Fantasy 40. Enjoy the show.
We are back once again. Welcome back. Took a little time off, but it's time to hit the ground running in the off season. Myself, John Dabari, my co-host Matt Walker, and Mr. Andrew Burke is once again missing somewhere in the Pacific Northwest.
John, meth doesn't cook itself, buddy. Duty calls.
That's what happens up there. We had an episode recorded for Fantasy Championship weekend, but technical issues lost that one, and then we're going to take a little time off anyway, so we're bouncing back here with our 2019 award show, which is my favorite show of the year. I'm looking forward to getting into this. I wish Burke was here to get his takes, but we'll have to do a two-man and give enough negativity for three people.
I think you and I can accommodate that. You by yourself brings enough negativity for three people. But, yeah, I'm pretty sure that Week 16 preview episode was 100% spot on. I think we were slinging arrows on that Week 16. So, sorry to all the fans that miss it. Blame Andrew Burke, Coach Burke82 on Twitter.
Someone's got to be held responsible.
Yep.
Without further ado, I guess we'll jump right into this. The first award we're going to go for is the surprise performer of the season. So basically somebody outperformed, not necessarily ADP, but just did more than we had expected to see them do this year. So who do you got, Walk? Who's your surprise performer this year?
See, I took a slightly different approach just because I don't think he was a surprise to us, but I think he was a massive surprise overall and to a large portion of the fans community, especially like novices. But I went with Darren Waller. Darren Waller, who was tight end 2 overall this season, 90 receptions, 1,145 yards, and only 3 touchdowns. There was only one other tight end in the top 12 with less than 5 touchdowns in the season. So he did it with volume and just explosive plays, and he disappeared for a little bit here and there. But Darren Waller's career before 2019 was 18 total receptions, and he dropped 90 on the NFL in 2019. Now, he had some issues in his past that probably led to a lack of receptions that he has cleaned up. He's got a nice, shiny contract. Oakland is a good environment for tight end, so I think that's going to persist. But
Las Vegas now.
Yes, officially. For the 2020 season would be Las Vegas. You are accurate, but he was an Oakland Raider this year. But Darren Waller, I mean, as tight end 2, we tell you to wait on tight ends, and he stuck out like a sore thumb. He was a waiver wire ad probably in most redraft leagues, and he finished as tight end 2. So give me him as a surprise for as high as he finished.
That's a good one. I had a trouble deciding. Josh Allen was my first one. He finished QB6, but I mean, he's still not very good, despite everyone sucking him off on Twitter after his playoff game. But I went Kenyon Drake. To me, I mean, I didn't think he was that good. I did think he was underused in Miami. But to see him get traded to Arizona and finish the year as RB18, and then between weeks 9 through 16, the second half of the fantasy season, he was RB4. I mean, I didn't think he had that kind of upside. I thought he was usable in PPR leagues, more of a change of pace guy, and in the right on the right team with the right role, he could surprise a little bit with reception totals. But he actually looked pretty good. Got used heavily by the Cardinals, and I can't believe he played as well as he did. I'm curious to see where he goes next year and how he gets used. But that literally blew my mind because I'm not a huge Kenyon Drake fan.
Yeah, no argument here. I mean, if we did a breakout performer, Kenyon Drake probably would have jumped right to the front of my mind. But True story. In the one dynasty league I won this year, and it's unfortunate, I was in 3 championships. I only won 1 league. Kenyon Drake and Ryan Tannehill guided me to a championship in dynasty football. So just think of the Miami Castoffs and how they finished. I think Ryan Tannehill was a top 5 quarterback after he was named a starter, and Drake was an animal, especially in the fantasy playoffs. He was dropping 30-point games in the fantasy playoffs. So I'm right there with you. It was exciting to see how he finally was used when he got to Arizona. He got volume. He was still used heavily as a pass catcher, which I think he's a plus pass catcher. We kind of got to hope he stays in Arizona, but what does that mean for David Johnson? It's going to be a weird offseason because he's going to hope to cash, right? He looked the part when he went to Arizona. This is probably his last opportunity for a paycheck, so he's not going to sign quick, but people aren't paying running backs anymore. So it's going to be interesting because he could have this, 6-8 week explosion in fantasy and then disappear if he lands in the wrong situation next year.
Quite a year for Miami Castoffs on both sides of the ball.
Yeah, well, shit. Look at Devontae Parker, not even a castoff.
Well,
But Gase hated his ass too. It's just crazy the value of some of these players and that it takes time. But you want to practice patience in fantasy, but I don't know anyone that could be patient enough to have waited for Parker and Kenyon Drake to hit. So
and Tannehill.
No, fuck yeah. In short of a 2 QB league, that dude was just sitting on a wire. I picked him up in the league. I won it.
And you won it.
I did. That's what happens when you lose Stafford and I think that was an Andrew Luck league. It was a startup league. So
fantastic.
You can withstand retirements and broken backs.
The next award we're going to go with is the Comeback Player of the Year. Comeback player. So who did you have for your Comeback Player of the Year?
I think I'm going to shock you here. I really think so. And
I think I know, because you said that, I think I know where you're going.
Oh, and somehow it still ties in to Adam Gase.
Oh, I'm lost then.
Yeah, I thought you were going to. Le'Veon Bell is my Comeback Player of the Year. RB16, I wrote in spite of Adam Gase.
Yeah.
I own Le'Veon Bell probably in far too many places. So I was personally invested in his return after he shit on a bunch of my dynasty teams last season by sitting out. And there were countless times where the Jets were first and goal at the 1 and Le'Veon Bell never touched the ball. Darnold was throwing it. He was going, naked boots and trying to run it in. I don't know how many touchdowns Darnold had, but they should all have been Le'Veon Bell's. All that aside, Bell still in 15 games, put up 215 points, and it was clear that Gase wanted nothing to do with letting Bell be successful, plus a shit offensive line. There was a recent tweet, I think J.J. Sagareason put it out, that Bell didn't have a 20-yard run this season, and on his volume or something, that him and Mikel LaSure were the only 2 players to not accomplish that feat, and he dropped a ton of names of lesser talents like Bo Scarborough and the like that did it this year on far less touches. I don't blame Le'Veon Bell. I don't at all. I blame the Jets and Adam Gase, and I can only hope as a Le'Veon Bell owner that he is out of New York next season, because there was a lot of rumblings, and I hope it's true, because he is going to kill – Adam Gase is going to kill Le'Veon Bell's value, which is very short-lived as is.
Only had 66 receptions.
That is correct, on 78 targets, which
no good.
Yes, is not how you use Le'Veon Bell. Just as a point of reference, he had 106 targets in his last full season in Pittsburgh in 2017, 85 catches, 665 yards. So his average wasn't much different, 7 yards a catch down from 7.7. But that's how you use him. You get him out from behind the line and use him in space. He is a plus pass catcher, and that's how he moves the chains. He's never been a huge yardage guy.
Nothing. He didn't get carries or targets. He just wasn't used.
Yeah, I get you didn't want to pay him the money, but that ship has sailed, and he was your
when
best
you got Bilal
player.
Powell, Walker. When you've got Bilal Powell there, how are you gonna give the ball to anybody else?
I agree. You got to get Ty Montgomery his touches. That's a foregone conclusion. But yeah, I went with Bell because I thought, he came back from nothing. 2018 was a 0, and to be even fantasy relevant a year later on the Jets. I'm going Comeback Player of the Year there.
That was a good one, and I actually probably would have had that too. I totally forgot he missed all last year because I don't have him anywhere, so it didn't affect me personally. So I selfishly Didn't care. I had a couple. I looked at injuries. Garoppolo was someone who came to mind. QB 15. I thought he looked better than he ever would, but I went with good old Manny Sanders. Was drafted 153rd overall last year. Ended up finishing 87th, but wide receiver 26. So for a guy that a lot of people wrote off and was like, he's old, it's Achilles injury, he's washed, to come back and be a kind of plug and play wide receiver too, and he played well most of the year. I didn't expect that out of him. I thought he was washed too.
Yeah, I mean, was it the Achilles? Is that what?
Yeah,
yeah, he dealt with. Yeah, I didn't see it. I gave him away for pennies on the dollar pre-injury a year ago because I was trying to clear the deck, and I thought clearly his time in Denver was coming to an end, and it did. But yeah, he surprised me in San Fran. I agree. So it's a pretty solid one.
We will now go to one of my favorites, the rookie of the year. As big dynasty guys, this is pretty important. It's good to have your rookies throw some stats out there and overperform. I'll go first because I'll give you a little homer pick for you. I went with Miles Sanders. In the fantasy playoffs, he averaged 23.5 points a game. He was the highest non-quarterback rookie, finished 55th overall, RB13. It's hard to expect too much more than that, with the exception of the, Barkleys and Adrian Peterson in the world who come in as rookies and blow the doors off the league. But Sanders really picked it up, especially as the injuries piled up in Philly. And he's my rookie of the year, and it's not even close.
Well, you're not going to like this, John. But I also went with Miles Sanders.
Philly.
I wrote that he was running back 15 on the season, and I just stuck to those fantasy playoffs. When week 13 to get in, he was running back 6 in PPR. Week 14, a tough week, he was running back 28. Week 15, RB3. Week 16, RB7.
Winning your ships.
With 3 top 7 performances in the last 4 weeks of the fantasy season, where he started getting the volume he deserved, not only in the running game, but in the passing game. That is where he made hay. I think, if memory serves me correct, he was 9th in running back receiving yards. Hit the wrong button. I went receptions, which is impressive because he wasn't even a full-time player.
Yeah.
What the heck? Oh, there he is, 7th. I undersold him. 7th in running back receiving yards. He did play 16 games, but he did not play all of 16 games. Especially
week 1, he only got like 3 snaps or something silly.
Yeah, he was light in the beginning of the season, and he left week 17, if memory serves me correct. So that's even far more impressive than that. We all know I love Josh Jacobs, but Josh Jacobs was not used in the receiving game, and he did not help come fantasy playoff time, so that discounted him a little bit for me. I went slight recency bias, slight Philly Eagles bias. But truthfully, Miles Sanders was my running back 2 coming into this season behind Josh Jacobs, and then there was a void. I'm not a David Montgomery guy, so he was everything I had hoped for and more, so I'm crowning him rookie of the year. And there were some wide receivers that could have got it, so it's impressive that we both went with Booby Miles.
Speaking of wide receivers, you didn't know this was coming, but I was hoping we'd have Burke because this is going to be a fun little quiz. Do you know, without looking, who the top 5 rookie wide receivers were?
I think I do, because in preparation for this, I did look at a bunch of rookies. A.J. Brown was 1. Terry McLaurin was 2. I'm talking PPR, so this is what I was looking at.
Sure.
A.J. Brown was 2. Terry McLaurin was 2. DK Metcalf was 3. Deebo Samuels was 4. And I believe Hollywood Brown was 5.
That was not PPR then, because I had I think I did half point. A.J. Brown, McLaurin, Metcalf, 1, 2, 3. Then it was Darius Slayton and Deontay Johnson.
Okay, they must have jumped because, in mine.
Well, I didn't do week 17 also.
Okay, this was all season, so yours probably more fantasy accurate than mine in PPR. Yes, Samuels was 3rd, and you are correct. Deebo Samuel was 4th, and Darius Slayton was still 5 in full PPR for the entirety of the season. Deontay Johnson did finish above Marquise Brown too, so there's that.
I mean, who saw that coming? That's a very interesting top 5, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, you were big on Darius Slayton. I like his speed, but I just didn't. And there was certainly a void for him with the Giants as they had all
Yeah.
possession guys, but not as a rookie. I certainly did not see that happening. And we all like Deontay Johnson, but certainly didn't see that happening rookie season either with Juju and with James Washington there. Juju got hurt and Deontay Johnson stepped right in that quarterback situation. You tell me all that happens, I'm not saying Deontay Johnson is, if anything, fantasy relevant his rookie year, and he was. So they came out of the gate hot for mid and later round picks.
Yeah. Now we're going to get into some of the good stuff, what we like to do here, which is hate on people. We're going right to the bust of the year. So who was your biggest fantasy bust of the 2019 season?
There was a few of these when we decided on categories that the name was just on the paper already once we decided. And it's Odell Beckham. Wide receiver 25 across 16 games. I know it came out that he wasn't healthy, but Beckham got 133 targets on the year. It wasn't like he was target deficient. He had 74 catches for 1,000 yards, another decent number, 4 touchdowns. It just wasn't what I saw coming. It was a total Browns collapse. Odell Beckham was top 12 in the NFL in targets, just as a point of reference.
I didn't know that.
He was number 12, 1 target behind Cooper Kupp, and only 4 targets behind Jarvis Landry, who ended up finishing as wide receiver 12 on the season. So it wasn't as if the Baker wasn't making receivers fantasy viable. It just was not Odell Beckham. And I get Jarvis Landry was there before, and there's different because in PPR, Jarvis Landry had 83 catches to Beckham 74. So there's a little value there, more touchdowns, but he put up more yards as well. So I was so optimistic about what Beckham was going to be in his first year in Cleveland with Baker. Freddie Kitchens just ruined everything, but Baker didn't help. He didn't. And neither did John Dorsey. You know, they didn't reinforce that O-line. Shit went south quick, and Odell Beckham busted for me and all fantasy owners. I mean, he wasn't even a wide receiver 2. He was a high-end wide receiver 3. That's crazy.
Yeah, I didn't realize he had that many targets. The obvious one to me is Antonio Brown. I mean, obviously he was going to the Raiders initially, so his expectations of what he used to do in Pittsburgh were a little down to begin with. But to just get one game out of him for the Patriots of all places, and then just zeros across the board. I mean, that guy, he ended up 438th overall for fantasy scoring. But obviously he
was 9th on a points per game basis.
And a boy.
So he's still a top 10 receiver.
But I pivoted. This is injury related, but I'm just happy because it's somebody I've avoided from day one. Kerryon Johnson. Kerryon Johnson was being drafted 27th-ish overall. He finished the year 224. I never believed in him, and part of that is he had an injury history, and he wasn't able to stay on the field in college, wasn't able to stay on the field last year. So you knew that drafting him, and this year taking him around the 2-3 turn and getting a goose egg out of that guy, to me it's Kerryon Johnson, and only because the injury stuff you should have been aware of when you were drafting him.
Yeah, and draft capital should factor in the bus, and OBJ was a top 2 round guy as well. I mean, he fell to the early second, but if you know my opinion of Kerryon Johnson coming out, I wasn't high on him. After his rookie year, I wasn't high on him. The dude's just average at everything. He doesn't blow me away. Factor in injury history, and I owned Kerryon Johnson in one place, and it wasn't by choice. I picked up an orphan, so I'm right there with you. That was a disappointment. There was nothing else in that backfield. He could and should have had a big season, and he didn't.
An interesting thing, just with his ADP and Antonio Brown's, who was around draft pick 23. So you had Kerryon 27, Antonio Brown 23. If you had the first overall pick, you would have gone Barkley. And on the 2-3 turn, it would not have been crazy for people to go Antonio Brown, Kerryon Johnson. And holy shit, 3 rounds, that team was dead in the water. You probably felt pretty good after the draft, too.
Yeah, walking out of there, you're like, man, I stole from this league. But while we're on biggest bust, I'd be remiss if we didn't just take a random shot at James Conner.
Oh, he's listed. I have him on my paper.
Okay, so we'll save that. I was going to say he couldn't be a bust because none of us like him, but I don't want him to get away from this episode without taking a couple shots.
Somebody else whose name I jotted down was Damian Williams, of who I'm not a fan either.
That's a rough one because I'm still pro Damian Williams, and I think just Damian Williams is going to be a great play this week in playoff DFS and in any of those, pick'em pools, in my opinion, because everyone else there has shown that they do not deserve touches.
What else do you do? You explode in the playoffs. Everybody buys you.
Well, listen, he did it. He did it going into the playoffs last year, so this is his time to shine. Yeah, but I don't disagree. He had every opportunity to be something special. Got dinged up, and then they bring in LaShawn McCoy, and then it all went to shit. That, and then Mahomes got hurt. Like that KC season was just, and then Tyreek Hill was hurt. I mean, that was a tough year. I mean, Kelsey's the only one that probably really returned value in that entire offense. To be honest with you. I
mean, the good thing about Tyreek Hill, though, was that you knew he was out when he was out. When he played, he was still a wide receiver one. Agreed. So, I mean, you season long, it did suck not to have him for that chunk of time, but it wasn't like when he did come back, he stunk. When he was on the field, you plugged him in and he performed for you. So, I mean, like I said, missing the time obviously stinks and it hurts, but I would say he returned value because you knew too, he's not like one of those guys that comes out, tries to play, plays 2 snaps and he's gone and you take the fucking goose egg for your week. At least he was known to be out and it was like, okay, he's out.
Yeah, 12 games. He was wide receiver 10 on a points per game basis. So yeah, he didn't bust on you. In any way, shape, or form. You're right. You knew the weeks he was missing, and when he played, he was at least returning wide receiver 2 numbers for you. Yeah. He didn't have as many of those massive wide receiver 1 overall days that I can remember off the top of my head. Those 150-yard 2 touchdown days. Yeah, but he was consistent. You're right. So I'm not going to give him the bust, but still, you missed 4 weeks of them. Plus the bye. So 5 weeks of your fantasy season, you had no Tyreek Hill, and you took him at late first, early second round.
Well, it depends when you drafted, because remember early in the offseason, everybody thought he was going to be gone. I got him in like the 6th in a startup.
I was going to say, I totally forgot about that. Yeah, he was like a peach in the Scott Fish Bowl because that was super early, and I think that news broke like literally right around like round 6 or 7 of our Fish Bowl draft, and it was like 3 players away from me, and he was already queued up, and the dude ended up running away with my division, took him, and I go, that's just a league-winning ad there if he avoids suspension.
What's funny is, depending on when you drafted and where you were able to get him, he could have been your MVP or LVP.
Yeah, could have tanked you, or could have set you up for victory. But yeah, still, all in all, somewhat disappointing across the board. But enough of that. You went biggest bust. Carry on. That's obvious. One and OBJ. So what do we got next, John?
Now we are a little positivity before we start wrapping this up. The fantasy MVP, most valuable player of 2019.
All right, there's some obvious, and
there's a lot of good ones.
Yeah, I don't go obvious. I mean, Christian McCaffrey is clearly the fantasy MVP this year.
He wouldn't be my obvious pick, but go ahead.
I mean, I forget where his stat was. I mean, if you take away all of his receiving work, he was still an RB1, and then all of his receiving work makes him a wide receiver 1. So you literally had an RB1 and a wide receiver 1 on, in one position. I mean, that is just pure insanity. And that just can't persist. I don't understand how this man, he's never even on the injury report. It's just baffles the mind, the usage that he gets at Carolina. And he just not even like a bruised toe.
No, what we were talking about before we started recording. He's a young man, sir. You and I are looking at it.
John, he's getting right under that bar that took you down, my man. He's got that awareness about him, too. That head's getting around and he's getting down. Yeah, so he's not taking a shot. So McCaffrey or Lamar Jackson, because Lamar Jackson was still value. And we all know I love Lamar Jackson. But I went with my boy, Christopher. I think his name's Christopher. His first name's not even Christopher. Rod Godwin. Chris Godwin, who was PPR wide receiver 2, tied with Julio Jones overall with a shiny 274.1 fantasy points, just shy of 20 points per game for a guy that at best you took as your team's wide receiver 2 in probably the likely 4th or 5th round. He was 1.9 points per game, better than second fiddle Mike Evans in Tampa Bay. He is amazing. I love him. Please re-sign Jameis so I can continue this train. Someone is eating a tub of mayo somewhere in a dark corner in their basement off of Twitter, and I love Chris Godwin. Fancy MVP.
You do love Chris Godwin.
I do.
You said McCaffrey is the obvious guy. I went Jackson because I do factor in ADP. 106th was his average draft position. 106th overall, and he comes out as the overall fantasy number one player. Can't beat that.
And he did it in 15 games.
Yeah. And I'm not going to go with the obvious one. There were quite a few. I'm a big Austin Eckler guy. He ended up RB5, and a lot of that's because, Melvin missed a bunch of time. Nick Chubb had a monster year despite that dog shit Browns team and offense.
Freddie Kitchens did everything he could not to let that happen.
Yes, I do love me some Leonard Fournette, and he played a full season, got volume heavy out of the backfield, looking like Le'Veon Bell. But
you are literally naming every person I would have guessed, and that's not the person that you're going to go with. I can't wait.
You'll know who it is immediately. This is your Godwin. I couldn't not, just because of personal MVP. I have him in a ton of places. RB2, our friend, Mr. Aaron Jones.
Showtime.
I mean, RB2, he was drafted. His ADP climbed up. He ended up being 28 overall, so top of the third. People started jumping on the bandwagon a little bit, but 19 total touchdowns, led the league in rushing touchdowns, I'm not mistaken, with 16.
He tied with Derrick Henry at 16. So
Tied.
He did lead the league. Tied the league.
But yeah, I mean, he finally got the workload we've been begging for 2 years. There were a few games where Jamal Williams got in there, or, LaFleur benched him because he had an early fumble or something stupid, which is just ridiculous. But we've seen it since he came into the league. When he gets the volume and they give him touches, good things happen. That we've mentioned a million times that game against the Bears where he's benched the whole game. First play of overtime, he runs it in for like 22 and a touchdown. So just getting him finally on the field, getting him the work he deserves. The only person who was better than him was McCaffrey, like you said, in that monster workload. So to me, McCaffrey, Lamar Jackson, Michael Thomas, they're kind of in a separate league at all these positions. He's the RB1B by a pretty decent stretch in my mind. So I'm just happy to see him do what we wanted him to do from day one.
Yeah, that is a great one. And, we're pro Aaron Jones on this podcast. Just as a few further, points of reference for how impressive his season was. Aaron Jones had the 15th most rushing attempts in the NFL this year. He had only 93 more carries than Christian McCaffrey had targets in the season. And his 19 touchdowns tied Christian McCaffrey. Running backs that had more carries than Aaron Jones this year: David Montgomery, Josh Jacobs, Carlos Hyde, Sony Michel. And then there's a litany of
Sony Michel had more carries.
Sony Michel had 247 carries. Aaron Jones had 336. Yes, they both listed as 16 games, but it's just the totals of how he puts up those numbers. He wasn't even heavily targeted in the pass game. He was super efficient in the pass game, but his 69 targets was 11th overall. So he was 15th in carries, 11 in targets, and he was running back too.
I mean, obviously,
even more impressive.
Super touchdown heavy, and there should be some regression next year. But like you said, he's just, when he gets his touches, he's efficient, and I've loved him since he came out of UTEP.
John, you're talking about touchdown heavy and being efficient. I mean, then what does that mean for like Christian McCaffrey, who had 403 touches this year to get to his 19 touchdowns? Then is he volume dependent?
I mean, he is.
Like,
he's also good, but
sure, I don't begrudge it. But it's just when you put Aaron Jones in position to succeed, he succeeds. When he stays on the field, he's uber productive. He is an RB1 in this league. He's a top 6 guy. He's in a good offense. Hopefully LaFleur understands that more Aaron Jones and less Jamal Williams is how you win football games. Plus, throw him the fucking ball. Actually use him in the passing game as well, because in my humble, non-professional opinion, Green Bay was the most explosive, dynamic, and unpredictable when Aaron Jones was running routes and catching passes. other than that, when it's just their typical, use running backs as running backs and throw to Devontae Adams all day, they weren't scaring anybody. But when you got Aaron Jones out in routes, good things happened.
What do you think his ceiling is reception-wise, though? Like, he had 49 receptions, so it's just a hair over 3 a game. If he went up to 4 a game, it's 64. But that magic number 4 seems to be about it.
Yeah, I mean, could he be used more? Yes. Should he be used more? Yes. Will he be used more? No. I mean, they clearly like Jamal Williams there, and he's got at least another season. They came in together, so there's still another year before anything's going to change there. And Jamal Williams isn't going to go away. They like him in the hurry up and the 2-minute drill and all for whatever reason over Aaron Jones. So Jamal Williams is probably going to continue to out-target Aaron Jones so as long as he can stay healthy. But if he can get to 60 receptions even, and get into that top 8. I mean, Devontae Freeman was number 8 at 59. Good things are going to happen. You're going to exceed 500 receiving yards. You probably get past that 3 touchdown mark. You get to 4 or 5, that can offset some of the obvious touchdown regression. You averaged a rushing touchdown a game. That's unlikely to repeat itself, as we've learned from the likes of Alvin Kamara, who was his highly unsustainable touchdown rate came back to earth this year and ruined a lot of people's leagues. That's potential for Aaron Jones, but he also could get more touches. So I'm right there with you. I think he is certainly a league winner, and he definitely was not taken as an RB1.
Do you know how many targets Leonard Fournette had?
Too many. 100. Yeah.
Woo!
He did nothing with him. And I know Jacksonville was a dumpster fire.
He was all right with them. 76 catches.
Yeah, for 522 yards. I mean,
oddly enough, not a single fucking touchdown receiving, though.
No, and he didn't have his 3 rushing touchdowns until the teams you drafted him for were already out of the playoffs. So it's unfortunate. We like Leonard Fournette here. I'm not going to try and bash him, but a player like Leonard Fournette does not deserve 100 targets. There was so much dump-off work in jump time. I watched countless games where they were down by 30 points, where Leonard Fournette was still getting carries and receptions and just tick it away at that PPR counter, and he would finish with 20 or 30 points because he was like, oh, somehow he had 7 catches for 42 yards. So that was the curse of Leonard Fournette this year. All those games happened against me, but yeah, I mean, crazy that he was 4th in the NFL.
He had back-to-back games with 9 in week 12 and 13.
I definitely played against him one of those weeks. What was the score of those games? I'm guaranteeing that one of them they lost by more than 20 points.
Lost by 22 in one and lost by 17 in the other.
There you go. Averaging about 20 points in those losses. Yeah, he's your PPR back. All right, fair enough. They said they weren't taking him off the field. They didn't. He got 365 touches on a bad team. Good for him. I know he possesses the ability. I'm not going to take that away from him, but we had mentioned Aaron Jones possibly touchdown regression. How did Fournette only get in the end zone 3 times total with all that work? So he's probably in line for Jacksonville was never in the red zone.
Well, I mean,
there was like 70-yard touchdown passes to DJ Chark or 3.
Also true.
So he didn't have opportunity, and their line didn't do their job either. But hey, Jacksonville saw fit to keep Doug Marrone around. They thought the problem was Tom Coughlin. So I don't think shit's changing next year.
Believe me, I was so happy to hear that.
Yeah, I mean, Coughlin needs just.
I don't give a shit about Coughlin. Just Marrone being there, knowing I get another year of usage out of Fournette. Very selfishly, I'm like, oh, thank God Marrone kept his job.
Yeah, I mean, it's clear they're going to run him into the ground. There's also the Leonard Fournette didn't sit until pointless week 17, so he still couldn't put a 16-game season together, but it's because they sat him because it didn't matter. Yeah. But this was the healthiest Fournette we've seen to get these touches. That cannot be assumed either.
I mean, what's that goofy saying? Everybody's injury prone until they're not. Maybe you got whatever foot issues squared away in the last offseason. And
I think AJ Green needs to give him a call.
Yeah, no shit.
Fix those floppy feet later.
Off of that note, speaking of people who didn't help you at all, let's go to the least valuable player, one of my favorite awards of the year.
I went totally off book here because it's probably someone that's not even relevant, but I just wanted to take one more shot at the guy on the way out the door because we're never going to hear from him again. And it is Kalen Garbage was the least valuable player. He was a starting running back for the vast majority of the NFL season, and he was able to ring up a sterling 1.82 yards per carry and 4.5 yards per reception. As a point of reference, Tom Brady in his NFL career averages 1.7 yards per carry and 21.7 yards per reception. Tom Brady, a better running back than Kalen Ballage. End of story.
Ballage had by far the worst yards per carry in history, correct?
Correct.
Fuck.
Because he's by far the worst running back in NFL history. Because he's not a running back. Let's check the tapes. Yep.
I was a fan coming out, that athletic profile, but yeah, boy, on the field, that guy is
he's an absolute dumpster fire. That guy was painful to watch. We all know by now, ducking under passes, refusing to get past the line of scrimmage on any given run. I know Miami was bad, but they strung some shit together.
Refusing, yes, that's perfect.
Absolutely refusing to go past the line of scrimmage.
I would not hit him like a fucking like a mime, like you're running into one of those mime walls.
Yes, he was disgusting. Another one, Tevin Coleman, who I don't think is good at football. He had like one big game, but he left a lot of people wanting for more, finishes RB 39, even though Matt Breida predictably missed a decent part of the season again due to injury. Matt Breida, better running back than Tevin Coleman. Raheem Mostert, maybe better running back than both of them. That's to be determined, but for whatever reason, Tevin Coleman still gets too many touches in my opinion, so give him an honorable mention, but I just wanted to kick Kalen Ballage while he was down.
That's fair. Several of these guys, when I put my list together, we already bashed several of them. Antonio Brown, Kerryon, Beckham, Damian Williams. We didn't touch on Juju. Granted, he got hurt, but
he's coming up.
Got a Ballage there. We always take a shot at our man James Conner when we can. David Johnson was my leading candidate here until I realized he did average 10 a game. He just, missed some time and then lost his job. So I pivoted off of him. This is going to be a surprise probably, but I went with Pat Mahomes as my least valuable player. Being drafted in most leagues in the first round, and you're a fucking dummy if you're taking quarterbacks that early. And he ended up QB 8 on the year. So you blew that draft capital on him. He was 10th overall, quarterback 8. So he was still playable, but you could have waited until, the 8th, 9th round and got Lamar Jackson or many other late round quarterbacks that would have
Jameis Winston.
Yeah, would have provided you fantasy points and got somebody else in round 1 who could have helped your team at running back or wide receiver. So to me, based on his ADP and people freaking out that, this guy's going to throw 50 touchdowns every year. And I said it a bunch last year, which was, he might end up being the best quarterback ever, but unless he absolutely is, he's going to regress huge this year. So I had none of him while other people were freaking out, jumping over each other to draft him as early as possible. To me, based on ADP, that guy is the least valuable player of 2019.
Yeah, hard to argue. I had him as quarterback 6 on a points per game basis. So didn't ruin you, but he wasn't Pat Mahomes. I mean, he wasn't winning you leagues, and anyone that took him early in any type of redraft formats is doing fantasy wrong. I took him as quarterback. I took him as pick 10 in the Scott Fish Bowl.
So which is goofy scoring. That's
I felt firsthand said pain. I also had Odell Beckham on that team who fell into my bus. So it wasn't a shining year. And then my tight ends decided to not even play football this year. So it was there were some dark days, but I did have Godwin and Josh Jacobs in that league. So I was the puncher shades any given week, but it was tough pill to swallow. So I don't argue with Mahomes. James Conner, again, it's hard to be a least valuable player when you don't value a player. In any capacity before. So I think, by letter of the law, he's avoiding a lot of, these, designations, awards, shall we say. But
he gets our most okayest award.
Yeah, I just went with different. We always have different criteria, and that's what I like the most about this is, you were a less valuable player in the NFL than Kalen Ballage.
I mean, you and Ballage and Mahomes, how different a criteria must we have been using?
Yeah, right. The guy that's going to be washing Patrick Mahomes' car next year.
Maybe.
Is my guy. Yeah, best case scenario.
He'll drop the sponge. to close this out, a new category for this year, which should be fun. The biggest disappointment of the year. So you can take that to mean whatever you want. If it's personal to you, however you look at it, who was the biggest, and feel free to name more than one, who was the biggest fantasy disappointment of 2019?
A lot of people disappoint me on an almost regular basis.
Yes.
So there could be a lot to unpack here. I went with the name that you dropped earlier, and it was Juju.
Dun, 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 dun.
And it's because he didn't bust, in my opinion, because there were so many circumstances in play with him, including his own injury. But, the Big Ben injury just tanked that entire team, and who would have thought that would be a statement? And then, everyone who thought, the year without Antonio Brown was going to change everything for him. We don't know if that's true or not, because we never really got to see full Juju with Big Ben, no Antonio Brown. Now, hopefully, Big Ben comes back and can at least be a competent quarterback next year. And then, I'll reserve judgment for Juju as an alpha on a team until then. But, 42 for 552 and 3 touchdowns in 12 games is not what we were expecting from the wide receiver one in Pittsburgh. You mentioned Deontay Johnson, who was able to put up 59 for 560 and 5. And I don't know where our buddy James Washington landed, but I know he had a fair amount of touchdowns in the season. So I'm going to think Juju was the wide receiver 3 on his own team last year. James Washington, 44 for 735 and 3. So, yes, both outscored Juju on a total and on a points per game basis. It was just a lost season for Juju, unfortunately, and left me extremely disappointed because I love Juju. I'm a big fan. I've been in a lot of places, and I was hoping and expecting for a lot more from him.
Well, so many people were so excited based on what he showed the previous year, and it had been mentioned. It's not like I'm coming up with this, but he had the benefit of playing opposite Antonio Brown in that offense, and he was going to see, the focus of opposite teams' top cornerbacks and double coverage and everything. And I think even with Ben, I'm reserving my optimism. I don't know if he might be able to, with a better quarterback, obviously it helps. He might be able to, but I don't think he's ever going to be this bona fide wide receiver 1 year in and year out.
See, I think he has that in his range of outcomes.
It's possible. I'm just if I got
one anymore, it's not as alpha as it used to be. I mean, Julian Edelman was a wide receiver 1. Devontae
First
Parker
time ever.
was a wide receiver 1. Jarvis Landry was a wide receiver 1. This year, Cooper Kupp. None of those guys are alphas. Keenan Allen. Of course, Julio and Hopkins and Michael Thomas are there. But you don't have to be this alpha. I guess to a certain extent, you still have to be kind of a target hog. Everyone in the top 12 had at least 116 targets, and the lowest was our boy Galladay, who had 11 touchdowns this year. So I think he does, because he's going to slot right back in as the primary target getter in an offense that could be peppering him with upwards of 150 targets next year. But I think you're right. Whether is Ben back or do they fix the backup position, because Rudolph and Duck Hodges sure shit ain't it. The fact that they were in playoff contention, winning ugly, was probably more a product of
defense,
their environment and their defense. The teams they were playing and that defense, which was very good. But they wouldn't have made any noise in the playoffs, if they staggered in. So it's I'm still optimistic. I think a healthy Juju with a competent quarterback next year will be a top 12 wide receiver. That's right. And that's like 14 games of Ben.
Sure.
Like maybe he misses a game here and there because he's banged up or he sits at the end of the season. But Big Ben is back and under center with no lingering issues from his elbow injury, even just next year. He is going to pepper Juju with targets.
It's possible. Unless, would it be nuts for Johnson to jump him? Would it be crazy?
No, not at all. But Johnson has no rapport with Big Ben. He wasn't even
also true.
Field when Ben was still there. Clearly, James Washington and Ben weren't clicking. James Washington and Rudolph weren't clicking, and they have that old college tie. It was Duck Hodges that was making James Washington relevant. So everyone had kind of their own points, and they can all coexist. I mean, we've seen two receivers exist in Pittsburgh. I mean, we're just talking about Antonio Brown and Juju. You know, I mean, it can be Juju and the other guy. It probably will be Deontay Johnson if you had to ask me, because James Washington's just not as complete. But I think they can both exist if we get a decent quarterback in there.
All valid points.
All right, did you shit on your guy?
I have not yet shit on my guy. And I had some big pickings. I don't believe in Tariq Cohen, but he went from RB9 last year to RB38. He was a candidate. Duke Johnson, if you recall, the hype was crazy when he landed in Houston before Carlos Hyde landed there, but he ended up RB23. He had his most rushing attempts ever, but his fewest targets and receptions, so he kind of shit the bed. Darius Geis let a bunch of people down, mainly due to injury. But I went with a duo of quarterbacks I couldn't pick. Marcus Mariota, who, man, did I believe in him, and he could not get it done this year. And then to see awful Ryan Tannehill come in and fucking look more than competent, Mariota just must be awful in the same offense. So
Mariota's never going to happen, right?
No.
He's not going to go anywhere else, reinvent himself, and be a fantasy relevant quarterback. He's a backup. He'll be a backup that if injury and all the stars align, maybe he gets, a little window. But yeah, I mean, they pulled the plug on him and the world changed in Tennessee.
Yeah. So he's done. That's a wrap. But yeah, I believed, and every year, a different offense. We're going to do this. We're going to do this. And then to see someone else come in and be more than proficient in that system just sank his ship. But my other quarterback is my boyfriend, Baker Mayfield. Ugh.
Yep, right there.
I mean, what a fucking disappointment across the board. I mean, he ended up QB 19, so he was usable in Superflex, but only 15 points a game. By comparison, Dogshit Mariota had 14.4, so he's slightly better than Mariota on a per-game basis. Just, coming into the season, everyone was high on the Browns. He had the weapons in place to succeed. He looked good his rookie year, and he, whether it's his fault or the scheme or the culture there or whatever, boy, what a letdown, because lots of people were high on that team and especially high on him. So to come in here with people thinking he's a top 5 dynasty quarterback and come out here as like a low-end QB2, just a super huge letdown on more than one level. Hopefully they can get everything right. But personally, I was not as disappointed as I could have been, because if you recall, he was the most likely to bust out of the list of quarterbacks you gave me earlier in the year, because the Browns be the Browns. So I did hold a little reservation in the back of my mind that this team could suck even with all the hype, and they certainly came out and sucked and dragged him down with them.
This is no argument here. I have him in one of the leagues that we are in together, and he certainly was a guy every week. I'm like, am I sitting him? Like, am I benching Baker Mayfield in the 2-quarterback league? And there were a few weeks where I did bench him because he wasn't dependable. It's funny, the first guy you mentioned, Marcus Mariota, I thought would be a perfect pivot point for a guy that you would probably say you were disappointed in. I wouldn't, because I was never really that big of a fan. But Corey Davis, wide receiver 64, while A.J. Brown is currently still running past defenders for long touchdowns and a top 24 season, with that same combo platter of Mariota and Tannehill as his quarterback. Corey Davis, 64.
Well, yeah, I mean, that's the scary thing. Mariota and Davis, and you're like, oh, man, here it comes. And out of nowhere, it ends up being Tannehill and Brown in the same system. That's what makes you think they both are done.
Yeah, I'm with you. It's a few other guys that qualify. I'm officially relinquishing my Sammy Watkins truther card. I don't have it in me anymore. I still love the guy.
It makes me happy,
and I want the best for him. But wide receiver 49. He played 13 games. So he still missed his requisite 3 games. I mean, only played one more game than Tyreek Hill. When Tyreek Hill was supposed to be suspended, there was such an opportunity. And then, Tyreek Hill got hurt, and there was such an opportunity. But shit, it was just as much Robinson and Mecole Hardman, who I do love, as it was Sammy Watkins. He had a massive week 1, and anyone with a pulse should have known to sell on that. But it doesn't matter. There can't be a perfect situation. There can't be a perfect season. There can't be perfect health. Nothing is ever going to work for me and Sammy Watkins. So it's time to move on. And then the last who I'm probably most disappointed in, just in total, is Josh Gordon, and it's wide receiver 88. That I just wanted this to finally work out for him. Like, the dude's past his peak, and he's not going to be that wide receiver 1 overall anymore. Like he was in Cleveland, time back to your Baker Mayfield, but wasn't even a priority in New England. And then they weren't prioritizing him in Seattle either. He seemed like he was like a distant third in that pecking order, and he just run a couple value slants at the end of the game. And then he got popped again and suspended indefinitely. Just disappointing. He's never playing football,
right?
Yeah, he's never playing football again. No one's ever going to give him a shot. You can't commit those resources or that roster spot to someone who, you can't guarantee their availability. And it's unfortunate, because I still don't think he is that old, because he was young when he came out, because he came in out of supplemental league. He is 28 years old. He'll be 29 in April of next year. He's still within, his peak performance years, but there's some things that are more of a priority, I guess.
Is he finally off his rookie contract at least?
I doubt it.
I think.
I think he got some sort of 1-year deal, or he got an RFA deal where he got like $2 million or something.
Year 7, just getting out of that rookie deal.
Yeah,
fucking idiot.
16 and 14 games his first 2 years in Cleveland, put up 2,400 yards and 14 touchdowns across that time, and then only played 10 more games from 2014 to 17 as a Cleveland Brown. That's just wasted talent, unfortunately.
Hearing Sammy Watkins break your heart made this the greatest episode of all time.
Yeah, I mean, we have to be realists. I still love you, Sammy. I'm just not going to fight for you anymore. It's those relationships you just kind of got to let go at a certain point. Like, you just don't have the fight in you. If anyone wants to fight me about Eric Ebron, I'm still here.
Where's he going to go? Where's he going?
Listen, Chris Ballard doesn't want him. Chris Ballard's falling down my top GM rankings a little bit. He shit on that dude pretty quick. Like, I think we'll move on. Like, why don't just kick the guy while he's like recovering from surgery? Let him move on.
New England.
I'm all in. I listed like a litany of teams that could use him. New England would be great. The Redskins could use him. If Hunter Henry or Hooper end up elsewhere, both of those teams, he would slot right in as a great pass catching tight end for the Chargers or for the Falcons. And there's probably 4 or 5 other teams. Easy. If they use them right, it's just understands to move tight end. He's not an inline tight end. He can be snap restricted. I said, look at Mark Andrews and what he is for those Baltimore Ravens. And granted, they love targeting the tight end in Baltimore, but he's a snap restricted guy who is just a big wide receiver. That's what Eric Ebron is. Please put him somewhere that one magical season in Indy with Andrew Luck showed what he was capable of when targeted. And he has it in him again. That's in his range of outcomes, 10-plus touchdowns again next season if he falls in the right place.
You're not wrong.
I'm not leaving. I'm not leaving there. But
to be honest, the Chargers have done well with 2 tight ends in the past. Even if Henry comes back, Ebron could be viable there.
Very true, but I think we're going to see a very different Chargers team next year. I mean, it seems like by all indications, Philip Rivers is done. I mean, he was done on the field this year, and I can't see continuing to ride that train into the ground if you want to keep your job, if you're Anthony Lynn. Melvin Gordon's got to be gone. I mean, he just has to leave at this point in time. He can't accept any type of low ball offer from them, and they can't pony up to pay him at this point. So he's got to be out. And then Hunter Henry could be gone as well. I mean, it'd be a totally different offense, and they need to invest a ton in that line. So,
I mean, they can't stay on the field. That fucking team.
Yeah. Listen,
that team is
injury rate for those big old hog mollies is ridiculously high. So
across the board.
Either their staff isn't properly evaluating these people before they hand them contracts, or they just have the worst injury luck of all time.
I think it's the latter. August and September is just Charger injury news time.
Yeah, they shouldn't. They should just opt out of the preseason and training camp. No, we're not going to do it. We'll come in cold in September, and we'll work out the bugs the first month of the season.
Yeah, at least we'll have everybody.
Anyone on the field. Everything is optional. Yeah, it's all OTAs.
That is true. Well, I think that about does it for this 2019 award show. We didn't get Burke's picks. Maybe he'll share them on Twitter.
First rookie of the year was definitely DK Metcalf. Let's just
gotta be.
Call that what it is. He's big team DK Metcalf. He was putting something on Twitter earlier about how much he loves DK Metcalf.
Yeah, let's go through quick. We'll do his.
Every Dallas Cowboy. Michael Gallup was his most valuable
surprise performer. Comeback player of the year for him. Probably Devonta Freeman.
No, Jason Witten.
No, he'll go Freeman. I get where you're going. Disappointment will probably be Dak.
Amari Cooper. Couldn't trust him. When it was a sit road Dak. Sit road Amari. Dak Prescott was his MVP.
He's a front runner. MVP is either McCaffrey or Lamar Jackson.
Certainly. It's definitely
he doesn't shake it up.
Yeah.
He'll shit on James Conner too, whether it's least valuable or bust of the year.
Or disappointment, yeah. Just find a category.
Biggest disappointment, probably, Cooper or Dak.
What about Zeke?
He'll pivot. No, he'll go to Pollard. He's like, I was expecting more out of him, relieving Zeke.
There you go. Yeah. Somehow Zeke was running back 3. I don't see that. That surprised me just a little bit.
He expected him to be 1, so he's disappointed.
I took him first overall everywhere. Yeah. Insert your Dallas Cowboy or DK Metcalf player here for Andrew Burke.
Yes. Well, for our missing friend, Mr. Andrew Burke, Matt Walker, myself, John Dabari, and the Full-Time Fantasy Network. Check them out if you get a chance. We are the Fantasy 40 signing off. See you next week.
He was just walking on my back. Well, he decided to go full drop his butt onto my lower back. And I heard 4 to 5 things break and pop. And I froze. I thought he paralyzed me. I honestly thought he paralyzed me. Like, I was like, ah! Please get off me. Please get off me. Please get off me. Nothing wrong with me whatsoever. Like, literally, I'm like moving my toes and my hands. I'm like, this doesn't hurt yet. It's going to hurt a lot later. But it's like, I'm starting to like turn my back. Like something terrible happened.